We like this podcast because it's funny. Our secret, we're always funny. Just like Bruce Banner is always mad because your geek history lesson on the Hulk is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Green Jeans Inman. Welcome to the Mind University, because unlike other universities, this is a university that supports the study of gamma radiation. And yes, my friends, we have built a gamma bomb. We have put it out into a bunker. We have tricked a young intern named Rick Jones to go down into a ditch and to watch the transformation as we test this bomb out on a human being to make a monster. Yes, that's what we do here. We also do a podcast where we teach you about a character of pop culture in less than an hour. And Ashley, that very long intro is all about what character?
The Hulk.
The Hulk. The Incredible Hulk. The Immortal Hulk.
As the theme song says, the ever-loving Hulk.
Ooh, I like that one. I don't think they've ever made a comic book called The Ever-Loving Hulk. He's usually the ever-loving thing, Benjamin J. Grimm. I don't think there are any other adjectives with a Hulk. Are there? Am I missing any?
You're missing so many.
I am? Oh, there's Savage Hulk.
Immortal Hulk.
I already said Immortal Hulk.
There's a lot.
There are?
A lot.
Okay. All right. I don't remember that many. I don't
this
remember
is Marvel. We
Spider-Man.
like adjectives here.
All right. Anyways, so we're talking about the Hulk because the Hulk is a staple of everything in the Marvel Universe, basically now?
The Avengers now.
Yeah.
Also because this is an incredibly requested episode.
Oh, mama.
So we have an entire class of TAs today, including Chaim and Tobias Steinberg, lovely fans. We love them so much. Jeff Anderson, Isaiah Quinn, James Finneran, Ollie Sutcliffe, Matt Helms, Don Zach Denton, James Young, Vicky Fox Martin, James Wilson at Prisma8SLG, Lee Jones, and at Smoothie_gamer.
Awesome.
All requested a Hulk lesson.
And just to let you know, in case this is your first lesson because you enjoy the Hulk and your first episode of Geek History Lesson, you can request characters, subjects, or discussions for us to do on our Twitter at GHL Podcast, on our Facebook at facebook.com/Geek History Lesson, or you can go find our contact information on our site at geekhistorylesson.com. Those are the 3 ways to request an episode, and those are the only ways that we'll see them. If you're, I mean, we have personal accounts. We have other YouTube channels and there's stuff like that. If you request some other places, they'll get lost. Those are the places to do them. That's where we take the official list from.
Yes. So, and we do get around to all of them eventually. Our current list is something like 427 subjects.
Yeah, it just means that this podcast will run for the next 10 years.
Yeah, really.
So, but thanks, everybody. That's awesome. Man, we have a lot of Hulklings, as I'm going to call them. Can I call them Hulklings?
Well, Hulkling is his own character.
But I'm going to call them Hulklings.
Okay.
Hulkling's not really a Hulk. He's a Skrull.
He's a Skrull.
Yeah. So
we call them Hivelings if we're playing in the Planet Hulk territory.
Oh, that's true. No, we're going to go Hulklings.
I love the weird little bugs. They're so cool.
Well, actually, this is not an episode about weird little bugs. It's an episode about...
That's the Forager episode.
The Hulk. And our first section of the podcast is the 10-cent origin. That's where if you come up to this podcast and you give us a dime, this is how much we'll give you. No, actually, it's the Cliff Notes version of this character.
You can still give us a dime. I'll take a dime, girl.
Actually, I'll take a dime. I'll totally take a dime. But this is the Cliff Notes version of the podcast where, in case this is the only section of the podcast you can listen to, you can now take this information, you can go to a classy cocktail party full of gamma-infused drinks, and you can tell them, hey, we probably shouldn't be drinking these.
I do want to let you know that when we get to the main lesson, I do have actual facts about gamma radiation included in today's research.
Oh, man. This is a real true Mind University, everybody.
Yeah, in a post-Chernobyl the miniseries world, it was easy to find. Robert Bruce Banner, a.k.a. Joe Fixit, a.k.a. War, as in a horseman of the apocalypse, a.k.a. the World Breaker, Doc Green, Green Scar, Green King, and the Devil Hulk, is a Marvel Comics character. He is a human mutate. So, Jason, after 200 episodes, I finally discovered the difference between a human mutant and a human mutate. And let me tell you, it is arbitrary comics nonsense.
I was going to say, as soon as you said human mutate, I was like, I call BS.
So a human mutant is a member of the Homo superior fictional race, right? They, the X-Man. And a human mutate is like a superhero
Spider-Man.
who got bit by a spider or developed their powers later, not as a result of their genetic code. So that's the difference.
I call it a lame labeling device.
I call it the reason why X-Men should live in their own pocket universe.
Yeah.
But I did want to explain that if people aren't familiar with the distinction.
Cool.
The Hulk was, of course, created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and his first appearance was in The Incredible Hulk #1.
That makes sense.
Jason, really quick quiz for you.
Okay.
Do you know the city where Bruce Banner's accident took place?
Oh. Something tells me it's in New Mexico because
That would be wrong.
Nevada?
I know that would be. I know it looks like it's out in the desert.
It's a desert.
But it's fully in Dayton, Ohio. So shout out to our Ohio listeners.
What?
Tweet us if you're from Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio's
Yeah.
the birth of the Hulk?
Yeah, it is in the deserts of Dayton, Ohio. I don't know if Ohio might have deserts. I fully do not know.
Well, yeah, I always thought it was a play on Area 51.
It is.
Or a play on Los Alamos, which is in New Mexico.
Yeah, no, but it's Ohio.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. People of Dayton, watch out.
Congratulations. Yeah. The Hulk's team. I just thought that was so wild. I wanted to
They should put that on a sign, birthplace of the Hulk.
The team affiliations.
Like Riverside, Iowa claims James Kirk. They should claim the Hulk.
Yeah.
They should have Hulk Day.
Oh, man. Invite us to Hulk Day. We'll be your keynote speakers.
Dayton, Ohio. This could bring in so much revenue.
Yeah.
You guys need to have Hulk Days.
Invite us and Greg Pak. We're friends.
Yeah.
His team affiliations include the Avengers, the Defenders, the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, the Fantastic Four, Pantheon, which Jason wants to talk about later, and the Warbound. And his abilities include a genius-level intellect as Bruce, as the Hulk, invulnerability, superhuman strength, stamina, and durability, anger empowerment, and a regenerative healing factor. He has been portrayed in live action by Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, Eric Bana, Edward Norton, and currently by Mark Ruffalo. And fun fact, Wizard Magazine, staple of the podcast, ranked the Hulk as the 19th greatest comic book character of all time.
19.
And Marvel Comics named him their #1 best monster.
I mean, he is Marvel Comics' best monster.
Yeah.
100%.
But I thought that was interesting. I have a lot of really fun facts about the Hulk in the macrocosm of popular culture because he kind of has a lot more impact than I think in a post-MCU world we really understand.
I would say pre-MCU world even.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a television show.
But I mean, since then, I don't think people understand how popular he was before those movies came out and how in the sphere he was.
I just didn't understand you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I do want to encourage people, stick around to the end of the episode as if you weren't going to already, because we do have a super special guest joining us to chat about the Hulk. It is our own favorite supervillain, Mr. Jay Washington. So listen to the lesson because it's great and I did a lot of research. And then stick around for Jay. Come and join us.
Jay was voted the 9th favorite monster in the Marvel Universe.
You know what?
He's the second in the DCU.
Jay,
DCU. He's the second.
Jay would...
Because nobody can beat Swamp Thing.
Jay deserves to be a monster in a giant superhero movie.
Yeah.
I want that for him. All right, let's move right into the meet cute. What's that, Jason?
The meet cute is the section of the podcast where Ashley and I tell you where we first meeted and cuted the Hulk. It's a term we stole from romantic comedy, but it's a fun little look back into our lives.
Yes.
Yes. Ashley,
yes.
I'm very curious about this.
I have such a strong sense memory about
your
this.
Your common answer for this is Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
And if you're playing Geek History Lesson Bingo, you know what? Check that off.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyways, you can find out about that on our Twitters and stuff. So anyways, you can't say Batman the Animated Series in this.
That's right.
I'm always curious.
Or X-Men the Animated Series, which is my other answer.
I'm so curious about your Marvel ones because I know you're not a huge, you're more a DC gal.
Yes,
than
and
a
I
Marvel
was
gal.
definitely in my early Marvel reading career, like a hardcore X-Men, which I think is a lot of people's. It's either X-Men or Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, they're the big ones, yeah.
So Teletoon is this kids cartoon channel in Canada.
Yeah.
It's Channel 60. And it used to run the original Incredible Hulk cartoon.
All right.
In the early afternoons. They ran it through the late 90s and the early aughts. And I really, really liked it. When the Hulk would run, the backgrounds would move and the Hulk would not move. He was just like cut out.
All right.
So there was a minute where I thought the Hulk was like really great. And he was one of my favorite superheroes. And to this day, kids really like the Hulk. And I've always found that interesting and a fun thought experiment, and you immediately go, yeah, because he's a monster.
He's a monster.
I've done a lot of babysitting, a lot of nannying in my life. Boys always like the Hulk. My cousin Ethan, when he was about 9 years old, said, "Did you know there's a Red Hulk and a She-Hulk?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Don't lie, you didn't know that." And the Agents of Smash show is really popular. So I kind of came into him with the rerun of a cartoon, but I think with the same affection that a lot of other young people have for that character. And when I was about 12 years old, I used to compete in dragon boating, which is a rowing competition.
I almost thought you said dragon boning, and I was going to be
boning.
What is that?
No, that's what Daenerys does. And once at a competition, I had my face painted like the Hulk, but then when you go and race, you get very wet, and so I had green paint all over the rest of my body by the end of the race. So that was my meet cute for the Hulk.
Very cool.
Jason, what is yours?
So I've told the stories back in the days of a certain store called Walmart.
Yes.
And Walmart used to sell comic books. And during these times, these Walmarts back in the 90s would sell bundles of cheap comics. You could get like 20 comics for $10, something
like that. Which is a genius. And a lot of local comic shops do this now.
Yeah, and they were just grab bags.
Mm-hmm.
And in this grab bag, I had an issue of the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
And on the cover of this Fantastic Four are 4 heroes leaping towards the camera. And it's Fantastic Four, makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But these 4 heroes were the new Fantastic Four. And it was Spider-Man, Wolverine, the Hulk, and Ghost Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And that quite literally is the comic where I learned about the Hulk for the very first time. But I will say this, I kind of knew who the Hulk was before this because of the TV show.
You'd seen an image of him.
Well, I'd watched the TV show.
The OG live action?
Yes, because it was in reruns, the 80s TV show. It was in reruns during the 90s. So I know I've seen it, like I knew it, but I didn't quite know, I hadn't read the Hulk in comic books until this Fantastic Four issue, which is Fantastic Four 348.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the issue where I learned about Ghost Rider.
Cool.
So yeah, and he was the Gray Hulk during that.
Yes, we'll also talk a lot about that. So let's dive right into the History 101. Jason, what's that?
It's the main meat of the lesson. This is where Professor Ashley and all her little Hulklings are going to take us down memory lane, take us down, some would say, the green lane, and teach us about the Hulk.
To the 1960s. So I'm going to talk a little bit...
To the 1960s.
I was really hoping you would give us a music cue.
To Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, more like to New York City because Marvel.
Oh, damn it.
We're going to talk a bit about publication and development history before we get into the main fictional character biography because I'm going to be honest, friends, and I don't mean this to sound judgy, but the Hulk is a character who lacks depth compared to some of the other characters that we've talked about in the past, but he does have a lot of strong themes. So we're going to be talking about that instead for this lesson. So every excellent Hulk story, and there are many, touch on the same theme. Stages of grief, Hulk wanting to be isolated but learning he needs to be around people, and split personalities and their origin. He was co-created, of course, by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Stan Lee cited Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 2 books I read in high school, as key influences, as well as the Jewish myth of the Golem, that's Golem. And fun fact, Frankenstein is considered to be the very first work of science fiction ever, and it was written by an 18-year-old woman, and I think that's exceptional, and I will always bring it up.
By the way, I'm going to throw this out there on the podcast. If you have never read the original Frankenstein novel, it holds up.
It is so excellent.
It's really good. I read it when I was in high school, and I was blown away by it. It's really good.
Maybe I'll just add it to our recommended reading.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to say it right now. It is required reading for the Hulk because it is such a luminary science fiction work.
It's also just like so good.
Yep,
so good.
Yeah, that's what's so surprising about it. It's not the fact that a little bit of the fact that she was a woman, but not.
The fact that she was 18, I think, is what is surprising. And you can find. Yeah. Okay, sidebar. You can find these online.
Frankenstein sidebar.
I punched the mic because I'm so excited by this.
Frankenstein sidebar.
You can find this online. You can find pictures of the original manuscript that she wrote. They're in a museum in England, of course. And you can see her original edits. There are less than 10 edits to her first draft. That's what it was so good, that's the way it came out.
That's where, the fact that she, for her first at bat was like a home run.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing.
I have things I wrote when I was 18. They were not that good.
By the way, I have things I wrote last week and they're not so good. I would love Frankenstein sidebar to be like a permanent fixture.
You know what? Please send us some Frankenstein sidebar art. And now the first one will send you something.
I kind of think it should just be the voice of the Hulk from now on. Like,
Great.
it should just be Frankenstein, because how else can I be? I cannot beat anybody that's actually voiced the Hulk. So, like, it might as well just be Frankenstein. Be like,
Great.
fire,
Well, that's the movie.
Hulk, smash.
So Jack Kirby stated that his inspiration for the Hulk were those stories that you always hear of superhuman strength, like when a mother lifts a car to save her baby, that it comes from this place of desperation. And so, you know how in the early days the Hulk was gray? We talked about that. Jason, do you know why he was gray? It's okay if you don't.
It's something to do with the printing.
Yeah, so Stan Lee stated that he did want the color to be as neutral as possible, so that in the Hulk form, because he's rather grotesque, doesn't suggest any ethnicity and possibly offend anyone. So he didn't want... Bruce Banner is Caucasian. He didn't want it to seem like he was turning into another race and that was a commentary on that. So he was like, please color it gray. However, at the time, and technology being what it was, the colorist, Stan Goldberg, shout out to Stan Goldberg, colorists do incredibly important work and should be celebrated. So Stan Goldberg couldn't just use gray or a shade of gray because there was like only 3 colors you could use in printing, and it was all done by hand and there were no computers. So when it was printed, it often wound up being a hue of green. So the Hulk just became green in subsequent recolorings and reprintings until the Incredible Hulk Volume 2, number 302 in December of 1984 that reintroduced the Gray Hulk and canonized it during a series of flashbacks. So I thought that was interesting. And fun fact, in later issues of Lee's Hulk run, he forgot the protagonist's name. And so there are several issues where he calls himself Bob Banner instead of Bruce Banner, which is why his full name is now Robert Bruce Banner, like we said in the Tencent origin. I think this is no shade to Stan Lee. He created so many characters that we love. He was writing
like 10 books at the same time.
But this is also the problem with not having an editor.
Yeah, because he was his own editor.
He served as the editor. And look, lots of Marv Wolfman did that as well. Lots of great creators have done that. Jason and I have done that. But I just think it's funny.
He does that in some Fantastic Four. He doesn't misname characters, but you can tell in some early Fantastic Four issues that he is clearly overworked.
Yes.
Because like there's some stuff.
He's carrying the weight of Marvel on his back.
Well, yeah, he's literally writing 10 books at the same time, and you can tell that all the storylines are just combining. You can tell that he's having a hard time making the story make any damn sense.
Yeah.
No, I don't blame him at all. Like, I couldn't do it.
No, we tip our hats to him, in fact. It just makes me laugh. So the original Hulk series only ran for 6 issues, which today would be an excellent run, by the way, ending in March of 1963. Okay, so now a little fictional character. History. Dr. Robert Bruce Banner had been researching gamma radiations, which is a real-life thing. Nowadays, it's most commonly used for radiation treatment for patients with cancer or any kind of subdermal medical procedures. So
and
that's what it's used for.
Was Radiation Sidebar.
Yeah, there you go. This was Chernobyl Corner. From the time he'd been researching gamma radiation from the time he was a teenager.
Yes.
So as an adult, he used this research to create a gamma bomb for the United States Army because it was the 1960s.
Yep.
His supervisor was a man named Thunderbolt Ross, which is one of the great comic book names, in my opinion, who's the king of being a butthead.
General, don't forget his rank.
Yeah, sure, General, whatever. That's very disrespectful. General Thunderbolt Ross. But he's important because he's the father of Bruce's then-girlfriend, later wife, sometimes dead, Betty Ross. So you can imagine that he'll play an important role in the mythology going forward. Daddy Banner, Bruce Banner's dad, was a big part of Bruce's life, and then later on was canonized as having caused him a lot of abuse and a lot of grief, which led him to hulking out. And he himself would become a Hulk in the 90s called Guilt Hulk, but more on him later. On the day they were going to test Bruce's gamma bomb, he looked out onto the range and he saw that this teenage boy had snuck out onto the testing site for reasons. So he runs out from the safety of the blast shield to save the boy. Jason, do you know who this boy was?
Oh, I'm Rick Jones, sir.
Jason, important follow-up question.
Yeah?
Do you like Rick Jones?
Okay. Rick Jones sidebar. Rick Jones is a very important character to the Marvel Universe.
Mm-hmm. But do you like him?
Rick Jones sidebar. He's a very important character.
Yes.
He was a Bucky to a Captain America for a while. He literally became Captain Marvel for a while. I think the best version of Captain Marvel, actually. I'm throwing that out there right now. The Genus Marvel, where they switch places. It's great. Also written by Peter David, who will do a great Hulk run. And he was sort of the snapper car to the Avengers for a good long while.
I like snapper car.
But it's too weird that this kid is sort of involved in every single, like he's part of the formation of the Avengers. Rick Jones is. I like him only with the Hulk.
Okay. Excuse me.
And I like him when he gets involved with Captain Marvel because, like, you know, but like, I think he's too much in the Marvel universe. He's too much a part of it. He's such a Silver Age construction.
Oh, for sure.
And he's so outlived his usefulness. I'm kind of glad that he's never been introduced in the Marvel universe, the cinematic universe, to be honest with you, because I don't know how you do it. But I will say this. Rick Jones is the lead of what I consider to be the greatest, if not the best Avengers storyline of all time, Avengers Forever. Like, he is the lead character of it. And I know Kurt Busiek did that because he's so connected to everything in the Marvel universe. I like him in this role as the progenitor person of the Hulk. Rick Jones, sidebar over.
I hate Rick Jones. Every time he shows up, I'm annoyed. And I'm like,
You hate me?
I do.
Huh?
You suck.
Oh, man.
You suck so bad. Yeah, because it's like Archie is running around the Marvel universe, and even in the Silver Age, like even at the silliest, I find him to be out of place. But so
I just wanted to get a close up of the bomb.
Yeah, Bruce Banner doesn't want him to die, and like, I mean, I guess so. He grabs Rick and throws him into a ditch, which is apparently enough to protect him from the power of a bomb going off. Sidebar: it's not. So Bruce absorbs the full payload of the gamma bomb, and he dies. Lesson over. Thank you so much for coming. Just kidding. During the autopsy on his body, he wakes back up. He gets really scared. He hulks out for the first time. He goes on his first rampage, baby's first rampage. And then Thunderbolt Ross, who of course is, proximal to this testing site, goes after him. The Hulk fights a tank. In all versions, he fights a tank. And then Banner, of course, is left to pick up the pieces of his life and kind of decide what he's going to do going forward.
Yes.
And what's interesting about this origin is it's remained virtually unchanged, which is almost unheard of in comics. Like, it's set, cut, print, Emmy. Nothing really changes from here on out.
There's nothing. It's almost like Superman's origin. Like Superman's origin really hasn't changed either. Like the
but
pieces.
even with like the Marvel roving timeline that we talk about a lot, like nothing. It's always Gamma Bomb, Rick Jones, fight a tank, Thunderbolt Ross.
Well, because sadly, a Gamma Bomb is still timely.
Yeah. Hopefully,
it hasn't changed.
When this podcast ends in 10 years, when we run out of fan topic suggestions, we won't have to worry about bombs anymore. What a beautiful world that would be.
Yeah.
Originally.
And that was Utopia sidebar.
Yeah. Yeah, my Utopia definitely doesn't have any bombs. It was believed that Banner's transformation into the Hulk was caused by sunset and undone at sunrise. Classic monster trope, classic werewolf trope.
Yeah, it was like a werewolf. Like, he could only become the Hulk at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
But later, after Rick Jones witnessed Banner turning into the Hulk at daytime, following a failed attempt, of course, at Ross's men to shoot the Hulk into space, it was discovered that it was caused by Bruce's anger. Bruce is cured of this in the Incredible Hulk #4 in his very 4th issue of existence, but he chose to restore the Hulk's powers using his intelligence as Bruce Banner.
I read that Stan Lee did that because he said he had a hard time coming up with excuses for
to make him angry?
Well, no, for why the Hulk could only turn at night.
Oh, I have no problem with this change being made.
He found it very limiting, so that's why he changed it early on.
Absolutely. And also probably hard to color.
Yep.
In these original series stories, the Banner-Hulk relationship, like I said, is very much that of a werewolf. Bruce during the day, Hulk at night. It feels a lot more like a horror comic of the time than anything else that Marvel was getting up to, which makes it very, very unique. And these original dark aspects have reemerged in the modern day to great critical acclaim in Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk series, which we will get back to. But as always happens at Marvel, just because your book is canceled doesn't mean we're not going to shove you right onto a team. So the month after his book was canceled, Hulk went on to appear in Fantastic Four #12, March 1963, and then Avengers #1 as a founding member in September of 1963. Jason made a hilarious sketch video recapping Avengers #1. So I will share the link to that video on our socials the week that this episode drops. But this is not the Avengers lesson, but basically Hulk fights a train.
Yeah, but we also have to go back and talk about the Fantastic Four issue because that is the start of one of the longest Marvel Comics rivalries, The Thing versus the Hulk, which actually
even gets reprised in World War Hulk.
It happens every time The Thing and the Hulk get together. It becomes a thing. It even just happened in the current Fantastic Four issue where Ben Grimm tried to go on his honeymoon. Well, it's not current, but it was a couple weeks ago. Ben Grimm tried to go on his honeymoon, and the Controlled Hulk showed up, and The Thing and him fought. It's always this idea of like who can win, the Thing or the Hulk.
I'm putting you on the spot, Jason. Who's going to win?
The Hulk every time. But the great thing is in the issue, the Dan Slott written issue, the Thing finally won. Because he was protecting his new wife, Alicia Masters.
I love
which
that.
I actually was like, okay, I'll give it to The Thing on that one.
Yeah.
It was actually a great issue. Go read it.
Cool. In Avengers, we're going to establish another long-held Hulk trope, which is while the Hulk fights alongside the Avengers in issue 1 and 2, he becomes the villain of the third issue. And Greg Pak's Planet Hulk and World War Hulk do the same thing, perhaps most successfully for a modern audience, and the MCU Avengers have done this as well.
Avengers, good and bad.
Yes, truly. But don't worry, because by Avengers #5 in May of 1964, Hulk and Avengers are friends again, and they're fighting bad guys. So
Avengers,
he gets over it pretty quickly. It's during this time that the Hulk developed a more savage and childlike personality. He kind of goes into that problematic pseudo-tonto talk of the era, shifting away from his original portrayal as brutish, but not entirely unintelligible, and more like angry but innocent. This is also the same time where Hulk really starts taking off in pop culture and crazy things start happening for him. Kirby and Lee received a letter from a college dorm asking if they could make the Hulk their mascot. And so this led them to realize that the audience for Hulk was actually young adult readers, men in their late teens, early 20s, rather than children that they were marketing their mainstay superheroes for. I find this really interesting and also hilarious because modern media does the same thing. The idea that comics and animation are only for kids is still pervasive. Things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Young Justice, Star Wars Rebels really hit their stride when they embrace the fact that they're being consumed by a more mature audience, and that's who they should be marketed for. So I don't want to make fun of Lee and Kirby too much for not realizing this because it's definitely still happening in the geek sphere. For some reason, we haven't learned this lesson since 1964. But
I think the MCU might change that over the next 10 years.
I think so. This is also when the Hulk TV show was originally in development, but it's not going to happen for a little while yet.
Not for like 20 more years.
Well, yeah, but this was when they started trying to shop it around.
Yeah.
Rather than bringing the Hulk back for his own series, though, he became the co-lead of Tales to Astonish, which is a great title. Yeah. After he was introduced in issue 60 in October of 1964.
Do you know who he shared that book with?
I don't.
Iron Man.
Oh, I should have known that.
Tales to Astonish was the book that Iron Man appeared in.
Yeah, I can see the cover where he's like standing there in the hero pose.
Yeah.
A big change to what the Hulk looked like in that story was he was drawn by Steve Ditko as the primary artist, Spider-Man co-creator, although Kirby definitely was like the backup artist and still drawing a lot of Hulk stories. Some of the other backup artists included Gil Kane, Bill Everett, John Buscema, and Mary Severin, the first woman to draw the Hulk in an ongoing series. And fun fact, she writes the intro to the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale graphic novel Hulk Gray that we talked a lot about here during our Spider-Man Blue Book Club episode.
Will that be in the recommended reading?
It will not.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not. The art is really great.
Sure.
It really works for Tim Sale's
style. It's very gray.
It's also a quick read, so check it out. More so than the original Lee Kirby stuff, it was Tales to Astonish that established many of the things that we're most familiar with when it comes to the Hulk. They introduced his two nemesis, the Leader and the Abomination. And this was the first series where we saw Hulk time travel.
Hulk like time travel?
We'll see. It's not going to go well for you, sweetheart. In Tales to Astonish 77, March of 1966, Banner and the Hulk's new identity becomes publicly known because Rick Jones thinks that Bruce Banner's dead, so he tells everybody that he was the Hulk.
He wasn't trying to help.
He wasn't dead. He was just catapulted to the future.
Good God.
Yeah, he travels through time and space and dimensions. One of the dimensions that he goes to, he meets an empress named Jarella. She's also green. She's a green space alien. Very sexy, very 1960s.
Hulk and love.
She uses magic to bring Banner's intelligence into the Hulk body. This is the first time it happens, and they fall in love. And this is directly referenced in Planet Hulk, where he falls in love with another space princess.
So this is like sort of...
This is the first Smart Hulk.
This is the first appearance of Smart Hulk.
Yes, it is. Even though most people want to credit Peter David, and I'm happy to credit Peter David with that, but this is the first time, because it doesn't stick, but this is the first time it happens.
That's great. I thought it was Peter David. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Then, of course, Jarella dies. Hulk gets sad. Hulk comes back to modern day / his correct universe. He helps form the Defenders.
Love the Defenders. I love them. I love them.
Jason Todd, Defenders episode, Geek History Lesson 147.
It's the team of Hulk, Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, and Namor.
Yeah.
God, such a weird team.
And those are 3 characters who kind of revolve around a lot of Hulk stories, too.
But also, because he teams up with the Defenders, the Hulk is sort of tied to those 3 characters for the rest of his history.
Yeah, well, I mean, Silver Surfer pops up in Planet Hulk. He fights Doctor Strange and breaks all its fingers in World War Hulk. They're all sort of tied to him. And they're all kind of the weirdos, so it makes sense to team them up. The Hulk, in issue 102 in April of 1968, his series is retitled The Incredible Hulk Volume 2 for reasons. This title ran without retitling or renumbering from 1968 until 1999, when it was canceled and then relaunched as simply Hulk.
It was
because Marvel.
It was a big deal that when that title was canceled, because at the time...
It was one of the longest running.
It was one of the longest runnings, and I know a lot of fans brought up that idea. They're like, "What are you doing, canceling this title?"
Yeah, and then Marvel undid it last year, and now they're claiming they have 1,000 issues, and we're like, I don't think so, man.
Marvel's canceled every book they've had 50 times.
Yeah.
Now.
During this time, another integral part of Hulk's mythology comes into place, and that is Doc Samson.
Yeah.
He's kind of sometimes a superhero. He's also, from time to time, Bruce's close friend or confidant or his therapist. He's going to show up in a couple other stories we're going to talk about, so I just wanted to know, this is when Doc Samson is introduced.
Are we going to talk about his origin at all?
No, because this is not the Doc Samson episode.
Okay, well, Doc Samson he basically will become Hulk's therapist.
Yes.
And at one time, he will need a blood transfusion, and he will get a blood transfusion from the Hulk, and it will turn his hair green, and Doc Samson will sort of get...
He's a super strong and vulnerable type.
Because of this.
Yeah.
So this is like sort of... Doc Samson becomes the idea of... This is the idea where if you get injected with the Hulk's blood, weird stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, this is the first time this happens because She-Hulk, who we also have a lesson on, doesn't come around for quite a while. Now, I'm going to jump back in time to the 1970s for a little bit. Because in 1974, the legendary Len Wein takes over writing duties on The Incredible Hulk, which he wrote for 4 years. It's a pretty solid Hulk run. It is very much in the Silver Age style, but once you get your brain into that, you will enjoy it. He wants to be left alone. He isn't. He gets angry. He fights bad guys. Banner gets sad. Da-da-da-da-da. Jason, in The Hulk, issue 180. Do you know what happens?
This little cantankerous yellow character named Logan, not named Logan yet, but named the Wolverine shows up.
Right.
And let's not forget, probably the most important character in the Marvel Universe, the Wendigo appears.
You know what? I would love to write Wendigo as a bad guy, so don't you joke about that.
Speaking of, we've done this before, action figure sidebar.
Yes.
There's a, Marvel Legends does those Build-A-Figure lines.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think the new X-Men line, the Build-A-Figure is Wendigo.
I know, because I want it.
And he looks like in this issue. It's this version of Wendigo.
I want him because I want him to fight my Alpha Flight action figures.
Oh, it's funny, in that section they have Guardian as well from Alpha Flight.
I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why, if you were ever wondering, that's why Wolverine is so strong and so tough, because he has to stand up to the Hulk. Also, you can check out our 2-part Wolverine series for more on that issue and for more on that character.
Yeah.
That's episodes 150 and 151. It's not too long after our Defenders, so you can go back and listen to both of those. And Wolverine was very famously a soldier. He fought in a bunch of different wars. And Jason Inman actually wrote a book about soldiers that Wolverine may or may not be mentioned in. So, Jason, why don't you tell us about that right now?
Yeah, everybody out there, you may know this, you may not know this, I don't know, but I've written a book called Super Soldiers. It's called A Salute to the Comic Book Heroes and Villains That Have Served for Our Country. It is a prose book. It is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble right now. It's available right now. And you might be asking, well, why do I care about this book? Well, if you like this podcast, I have a feeling you're going to like this book because it is examining comic book characters that have served in the military, and I've served in the military, and I judge each of these characters based on whether or not they are good or bad soldiers. I'm really proud of the book, and you don't have to take my word for it. I have a review here from Eric Burnham. He is the writer of Ghostbusters Transformers, and he said this to say about the book. And he said that he's like, we see the characters explained for better or worse through the perspective of someone who has served. It has given me plenty of food for thought. And my biggest complaint about the book is that I think that this book could use more analysis. He's like, now that's not much of a complaint. He's like, we definitely left me wanting more. And I want a sequel to this book that has a solid rundown and some interesting takes. So, if you like our podcast, if you like the interesting takes, the sidebars, all the stuff like that, that is exactly what this book. I think it's one of the best things I've ever written. And again, it's available right now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere where books are sold. It's called Super Soldiers, A Salute to the Comic Book Heroes and Villains That Have Served. And if you've already purchased the book, please do me a favor and leave a review on Amazon because that helps bump the book up in the Amazon search algorithm. So, Super Soldiers, go check it out.
Yes, please do. I read it. I was the first person who read it.
Actually was the first person who read it.
Exceptional.
Yep. And Wolverine's in it.
He is in it. All right, more about the Hulk, though. This is not the Wolverine podcast.
We did 2 episodes on Wolverine. Doesn't need more.
It's true.
Get out of here, bub.
So then, it's 1977, right? The Hulk finally hits the big time. He has 2 made-for-television movies that are so highly watched and rated that it leads to the Incredible Hulk television show, which runs from 1978 to 1982.
Hulk is movie star.
Firstly, you're gonna go watch the scene where the Hulk fights a bear because I will also share that on our social media.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
And the show is where "Don't Make Me Angry, You Wouldn't Like Me When I'm Angry" comes from, which to me is a staple of the Hulk. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people know that the show was the progenitor of that.
It is. It's also that show, kind of like Batman 66. Permeated pop culture more so than a lot of people realize. Like, people still...
My mom knows who the Hulk is because of that show.
Because of that show. Also, he's named David Banner in that show, which is weird. Bill Bixby, who played Bruce, Dave, whatever the hell their name is.
Bill Bixby really played David.
Lou Ferrigno is great for the time.
And still riding that Hulk train.
And also, every episode ended with him hitchhiking out of town.
With that classic theme.
Do you know it?
No.
I know it. Dee 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 dee.
Yeah, but when I hear it, I'm like,
dee 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 dee. Dee 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 dee.
And it's because of that a lot of modern Hulk runs, you'll see Bruce hitchhiking.
I mean, it's the whole reason why the first
Family Guy parodies that, for God's sake.
Yeah, the first MCU Hulk movie is basically an episode of that television show. That...
The show is great for the time, too, and for the constraints of their production. The show does a really good job.
For a 1980s, early 1980s show, it does a really good job with a Hulk.
Yeah.
It's for what it is, it's a great show.
Mm-hmm. So after Len Wein leaves his writing duties, writers got really interested in exploring the Hulk as a character and fleshing out the Hulk-Banner relationship a little more. Mm-hmm. In 1980, Bill Mantlo, creator of Rocket Raccoon and Groot, and legendary artist Roger Stern took over the Hulk book.
You mean legendary writer?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Roger Stern was a writer. It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry, guys.
Also, he did a great run on...
I wrote those backwards.
on Spider-Man and Superman.
There you go. And in their story, Crossroads of Eternity, they introduced the idea that Bruce Banner had suffered from child abuse at the hands of his father.
Yes.
This pretty much sticks with the character into the modern day. In fact, it's an integral part of the Green Door story arc that just wrapped up in Immortal Hulk. Mm-hmm. Hulk gets a little reprieve during this storyline this time as well. He finally gets to marry Betty Ross, who, again, daughter of General Ross, who hates the Hulk more than anything. And it's at the same time that Bruce Banner's ties to Alpha Flight are introduced for the first time because Mantlo goes on to write for Alpha Flight full time. So there's like a lot of crossover that's going on.
And Alpha Flight is the Canadian super team, the Canadian Avengers, if you will.
I write them so bad.
Yep.
And so it was retcon that Bruce's college roommate was Walter Lankowski. Jason, do you know who Walter Lankowski is?
Is he Sasquatch in Alpha Flight?
He is Sasquatch. Yeah.
I was like, I know that name.
And really quick, you can request a full Sasquatch episode.
Please don't.
Walter is, he's a jock, but he kind of likes science, so he becomes Bruce's research assistant in college. They were roommates. He douses himself with gamma rays to try and become the second Hulk, and that's what brings on the Sasquatch transformation powers. Then we have one of the most important Hulk runs of all time, Peter David's.
Yes.
I feel like we've had the same discussion in the Supergirl episode, where we jump back into Bruce Banner's childhood trauma full time. He's actually given a psychological diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, and Betty Ross is brutally murdered.
Yes.
Jason, I know and
brought back to life
well,
in the same run.
Comics. Jason, I know you've read this run. I know you love it. I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to bring up about it, because I want to bring up chatting about mental health and the Hulk storylines.
So I didn't get a chance to reread this run.
That's okay. This is my lesson. You didn't have to do any research for it.
So this is me just very loosely talking off my run. The interesting thing about Peter David is Peter David was one of the first writers to literally lean into the mental instability of the Hulk. Mm-hmm. And also Peter David was one of the first writers to switch the Hulk. Like, he creates Mr. Fix-It. He creates Merged Hulk, which is the smart Hulk that can talk like that where it's what we just saw in Avengers Endgame, where it's Bruce Banner talking,
but he's just big and green.
He looks like the Hulk. That's also been referred to as Professor Hulk, but I first heard it as they call it Merged Hulk.
Yeah.
Peter David created Devil Hulk, I think, as well. Mm-hmm. He created all these different versions. But a big part of Peter David's run is this idea that the Hulk sort of meets up with this like terrorist organization called the Pantheon, and it's the idea that he doesn't know that they're terrorists at first. Mm-hmm. But the Pantheon was in the Hulk book for 2 years.
Yeah.
And the Hulk lived at their mountain called the Mount, and the Pantheon was led by Agamemnon, who is
a takeoff on the classic Homer.
Well,
character.
They sort of even hint that he actually is the real Agamemnon, but they do confirm at one point that he's like an Asgardian. But eventually the Hulk refuses. And, I don't know, there's a lot of Peter David. I think a lot of the things we know about the Hulk now, the things that stand us about the Hulk, are from the Peter David run.
I agree.
And it's hard to talk about it without just being like, you should read it, because most of it is on Marvel Unlimited.
I will say this is absolutely in the recommended reading.
I will say that I do think, and forgive me, I will try to Google it furiously as Ashley talks. Mm-hmm. I do think Peter David has written the greatest issue of the Hulk of all time.
I think there's definitely a good case for that. I'd make the same argument about Supergirl. I'm pretty certain, I'm going to Google it. Okay.
It's Peter David's final issue.
Okay.
And it's drawn by, I think it's drawn by Adam Kubert, and it's called like The Conversation or something like that. Or The Letter.
I think it's the last. I think you're right.
Yes.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to Google it and confirm
it, but I personally think it's like a letter of Bruce Banner, I think, to either Thunderbolt Ross or Betty. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of Peter David's goodbye to the Hulk.
If you read nothing else by Peter David, you should read that issue. Before you start your furious Googling, I know you had wanted to talk about Maestro. Do you want to put a pin in that? Or would you like to bring Peter David, if you guys haven't already figured that out, introduced so many new things and so many new aspects, and trying to pick out the single things to focus on has been a lot of fun.
So, yes. So there is a Hulk storyline called Future Imperfect. Mm-hmm. And
great title.
This is where the Hulk gets taken to the future. I didn't realize the Hulk time traveled as much. And
he does, which is so funny in the wake of Endgame, obviously.
And he meets his future self, this big bearded guy with one arm, and he calls himself in the future the Maestro. Mm-hmm. And he has killed all the villains. He rules the world, and he's an emperor. And he is Smart Hulk.
Yeah.
He talks like Banner, and he's twice as strong because he's twice as angry, and also he's been around longer. And it's interesting because the Hulk kills the Maestro in that storyline, but the Maestro has appeared since that storyline.
Of course.
And also, it became this thing for later in Peter David's run, where every time the Hulk did something like super angry, he had to be like, am I turning into the Maestro? I don't know if this is Immortal Hulk, but very recently, in the last couple years, one of the last writers of the Hulk, and I wasn't reading it, so I don't know, had the Hulk be like, oh, I should give myself a name for this thing instead of like calling myself the Hulk. And the Hulk's nickname that he came up for himself was Maestro.
I don't think that's Immortal Hulk.
I don't think it is either.
I think it might be the Mark Waid stuff.
I thought that was a smart writing beat, that it's like, oh, it's in there. Like that the Maestro is in there.
Yeah.
Future Imperfect, it's a one-off.
Yeah, check
it's
it out.
An OGN, but like to me, that might be the most important thing that Peter David introduced to the Hulk lore, because I'm going to tell you, and we might talk about this more in our Patreon episode when we reveal what that is.
Yeah.
I think the Maestro will be in the MCU somehow. I really do.
Yeah, so we'll put a pin on that.
Yes.
Jason will furiously Google, and I'm going to move on. So from this point forward, mental health is usually included as part of Hulk's narrative, including about a decade later when Paul Jenkins gave the Hulk multiple personalities, who were all in pursuit of Bruce Banner, because the Hulk hates Bruce Banner maybe more than anyone else. The villain of that series is known as Mr. Blue, who turns out to just be a different version of the Hulk. That's a really, really great story as well, the Mr. Blue story. Hulk and Banner are then physically separated by Doc Samson. Remember when we talked about him earlier? But that didn't last for very long because it isn't any fun. They are reunited, of course, in the Incredible Hulk number 323 in September of 1986. And then the Hulk returns to his gray coloring in issue 324, with this transformation once again recurring at night, which I think is really interesting. Next, I want to skip to a Brian Azzarello story. Brian Azzarello has this unique position in comics, I think, to create these one-off series that are sometimes in continuity and sometimes not in continuity, that have a lot to say about the characters. The Joker and the Luthor story come to mind for me. He wrote a miniseries that Jason basically ordered me to read when we were deciding about this episode, called Banner.
I can't find the story, by the way. I'm curious to Google.
That's okay.
I will also say,
you didn't teach this lesson. It's totally
listeners,
fine.
I apologize. Go look it up. Peter David's final issue. It's conversation. It's great. But also, like, I want to talk about Banner, so I can't Google and listen to you at the same time.
It's okay. So Banner, right? It's heavily influenced and heavily tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jason, do you want to tell us how the series starts? Because this is how you sold me on reading it.
Well, okay, it's a Marvel Max series. And this was when Marvel started doing like their own Vertigo. These are adult comics. It starts out where Bruce Banner tries to kill himself. And when he fires the gun, the bullet hits the Hulk.
Yeah.
So Bruce Banner can't kill himself. This storyline is referenced in Avengers number 1 by Bruce Banner. And you kind of find out that the reason why he's hiding in India is because he tried to kill himself.
Yeah.
Now, again, it is argued whether this storyline is in continuity or not in continuity, because some storylines reference it and some storylines don't. But this is sort of one of the first storylines that like leaned into the fact that the Hulk murders towns, like just destroys them. He is a human bomb. And if he comes into your town, everybody in that town's dead. And everybody's in, and that is Bruce Banner dealing with, and also the military people dealing with. And
Doc Samson is leading the search for him, and they have a big fight.
The Hulk is barely in this, but
he's in maybe 13 entire pages of 4 issues of 80 stories.
That's the interesting thing about the storyline. The storyline deals with the psychological impacts of what a Hulk would actually be like.
Because Banner wants to die the whole time, and he can't achieve it.
But let's talk about that. I think if you were Bruce Banner, wouldn't you?
Well, and Bruce is portrayed to be a pacifist. Look, that's kind of a heady question, like wouldn't, suicide and self-harm is a very serious subject. I just want to acknowledge that.
And we should also acknowledge that if you have any of those feelings or thoughts, please seek help. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Don't keep silent.
Yeah, absolutely not. And we love you.
Yes.
So I just want to say that before we engage in the discussion.
Yeah. It was. But
I understand why, if you were writing the Hulk, you would want to explore that, because I think it is absolutely how you would feel. I think it's great for a miniseries. I don't think you can sustain an entire series living in that space.
No, because eventually you'd have to move the Hulk onto something like merged Hulk, because he couldn't live in that forever. But I mean, I think that is an honest reaction to like the Savage Hulk, the original Hulk,
Especially if you're a man of science who deals in hard facts.
Yes. And it's interesting, too, because I think it's also interesting you said Bruce Banner is a pacifist, even though he built the gamma bomb. But
that's right. So
he becomes a pacifist because of the gamma bomb.
As a result,
yes.
Yeah.
And because the Hulk destroyed towns.
Next, House of M happens, the Ultimate Universe launches, and in that version, like I've said 100 times on this podcast, the Hulk eats people. But in a lot of those stories, and a lot of the big event stories that Hulk shows up on in the modern age, he's basically just there to be the muscle or a complication that gets in the Avengers' way. His next truly significant appearance isn't until 2006, when writer Greg Pak comes on to the series. We really, really love Greg Pak here on the podcast. And he gives us Planet Hulk and World War Hulk simultaneously. I spelled all of those titles wrong in my notes. In Planet Hulk, Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange, and Black Bolt, they're calling themselves the Illuminati. They're operating as the Secret Shadow Organization. They decide that the Hulk is too dangerous to be on Earth, so they fling him into space without his consent. And I shudder to imagine what they would have done to a female character in the same situation. The shuttle is knocked off course, and the Hulk lands on a planet called Sakaar, which MCU fans I'm sure will recognize. It's run by the tyrannical Red King, who uses prisoners and slaves to participate in gladiatorial combat. The Hulk does super well, as you might imagine, and he builds a group of allies around himself, which wind up naming themselves the War Bound, including a really, really serious, badass version of Korg and Meek. Not these walking, talking, broad sketch comedy characters that we know from the MCU. This leads to a revolution on the planet, and the Hulk goes from being known as the Green Scar to the Green King, aka the Sakaar son, the savior of Sakaar. He marries this incredible warrior woman named Kyra, who starts out as his enemy in the series. She gets pregnant, and then the rocket that he arrived on gets exploded and destroys everyone he loves. It's a pretty big reveal in Planet Hulk that Kyra is pregnant, and later on they actually do have two sons, even though she died. Their names are Scar and Hero Kala. The only thing I'm going to say about them is eventually they do come to Earth. Hero Kala winds up being bad. Scar and the Hulk have to capture him and send him to prison. So in World War Hulk, him and the Warbound return to Earth to fight all the heroes who sent the Hulk off in the first place. And Banner is slowly starting to reemerge because Banner really doesn't appear except for once in Planet Hulk. It's all about embracing that more savage side of himself. And he lets out more of his rage, but not before he breaks all of Doctor Strange's fingers and the Thing's face. Mm-hmm. Then the Hulk kind of sits on the back burner because the Red Hulk had emerged and taken over the Incredible Hulk title. The Red Hulk being Thunderbolt Ross.
Created by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness.
There you go. If you want to hear more about that, I guess you'll have to request a Thunderbolt Ross episode. Is there enough to do one? We'll see.
There is, I think. Or it'd mainly be a Red Hulk episode.
Yeah. Hulk basically acts as a reserve member of the Avengers until about 2010, when it turns out there are about as many members of the Hulk family as the Batman family, including Red Hulk, She-Hulk, Red She-Hulk, the two kids that I mentioned, and so many more. So the title gets rebranded as Incredible Hulks, which launches in 2011. It lives a pretty short life because then Marvel does their big Marvel Now reboot in 2012, and they relaunched the Indestructible Hulk solo title written by Mark Waid, who stayed on the series until 2015. This is a pretty beloved Hulk series.
It's a good book. Can I talk about it?
Yeah.
It's Smart Hulk. Mm-hmm. Working for S.H.I.E.L.D. It's kind of the Avengers movie version of the Hulk working for S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a good book, and I think Mark Bagley's the artist.
For most of it, yes. But, artists need backups from time to time.
But I think it's a decent book if you're looking for a fun, easy to read, don't need to know anything else Hulk book.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty decent entry point, which is maybe the best thing that Marvel Now gave us, because I think Marvel Now is sort of a mixed bag, like all reboots tend to be.
Yep.
But there are a lot of really good jumping on points. I want to talk about Original Sin, which is an event that happened during Marvel Now, or All New Marvel Now, or All New, All Different Marvel Now. One of those incarnations.
If we have to, sure.
So if you don't know about Original Sin, Uatu the Watcher, the little blue guy
He's
who
murdered.
lives on the moon, is murdered, but he also looks a bunch of people in the eye and reveals a bunch of nonsense about them.
Well, no, so his eye is stolen
That's right.
by a villain, and this villain basically wears the eye on his head. So whenever any of the heroes fight this villain, he can zap them with a beam from Uatu's eye, and it reveals a dangerous secret or something like that. And
so anyway, Tony Stark gets zapped.
Yep.
And Bruce Banner learns that the day of the Gamma bomb, the day that it went off and he became the Hulk, Tony Stark had been there and that he tampered with the Gamma bomb. And so he jumps to the conclusion that this effectively caused the accident and caused Bruce to become Hulk in the first place.
Oh, I didn't know.
So Hulk gets real mad about that.
I didn't know about that one.
But because he's the Hulk and he jumps to the conclusion, it's later revealed, so we have a double retcon, that Tony's modification kept the bomb from disintegrating everyone in the blast radius, so he actually saved Bruce's life instead of not saving his life, but their relationship is damaged and they fight for a little while.
Let's put on a pause there.
Very silly. This is actually not the first introduction that Tony Stark is around when the Gamma Bomb testing is going on.
Right.
You see that in Hulk Gray, but we never really know why he's there except for the fact that he's a munitions manufacturer.
Okay, because I was just going to bring up the point that I didn't need Tony Stark in this origin, and I think he's quite useless in this origin. And that he made it safer. Okay.
Which is also but it's a bomb. The whole point of it is to disintegrate everybody there.
All right, I guess.
Yeah. I knew you wouldn't like it, but I wanted to touch on it.
There's only one good storyline in Original Sin, and that is because the only good storyline or the reveal is because of Thor, because this is during Jason Aaron's Thor run, and he makes Thor's reveal tie directly into his storyline. This is the Original Sin storyline is the storyline where the secret, I don't want to tell you because it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
The thing that Thor gets told
this is the beginning of Unworthy Thor.
It makes him be unworthy of Mjolnir, and that's what allows Jane Foster to pick it up. So that's the only good thing about Original Sin. Yeah,
and it's honestly collected in the Jane Foster Thor story, so you don't even have to read Original.
Yeah, exactly.
So then there's an event the same year called Axis, because Marvel loves events, which is very bad. And it introduces a new mutation of the Hulk. So in the modern age, not only do we have a whole family of Hulks, but we have a lot of Hulks. So in Fear itself, when a bunch of Thor hammers fell to Earth, there's a version of the Hulk called Null, N-U-L. He basically rampages through all of the world. In Axis, we meet Kluh, which is K-L-U-H, which is literally Hulk spelled backwards. It's a further mutation described as the Hulk's Hulk, who is, that's a direct quote, who is the most ruthless part of himself that even the Hulk persona kept repressed, and he becomes the most prominent villain of this storyline. He's eventually turned back into Smart Hulk Doc Green persona by Brother Voodoo, which is kind of cool. And Doc Green comes to the conclusion that the world was endangered by all of the gamma mutates, so by all of the Hulk families, and thus they needed to be depowered. So he develops a serum made of adamantium nanobites that were absorbed gamma.
You mean nanobots?
Nanobites is what my research said.
Oh, I don't know what the hell nanobites are.
Don't
but sure.
know either, but so maybe it's bots. Someone will tell us that absorbed gamma energy. He uses them to depower the Red Leader, the Red She-Hulk, Red Hulk, Scar, the Gamma Core, and A-Bomb. But he decides, because her title was selling well at the time, to spare She-Hulk, Jen Walters, because he concluded that she was the only one that the gamma mutation helped, that she was legitimately improved by her mutation and used it more for good than ill. By the end of Axis, Doc Green has faded away, and we go back to the kind of lower intelligent, more brutal Hulk and the highly intelligent Bruce Banner persona again. So following that, from 2015 to 2018, Amadeus Cho became the titular Hulk. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I'm not going to talk too much about him because you can request an Amadeus Cho episode. I would absolutely love to teach one, and his series is really, really good. And then in 2018, Al Ewing started to work on Immortal Hulk, which we've alluded to a lot, and I think is really, really exceptional, but it's hard to talk about because it's currently being published at the time of this recording, and so I don't want to spoil it for you. So during the events of Civil War II, Bruce Banner dies. No one knows he's alive. He comes back to life, and this basically allows him to operate literally in the shadows and re-embrace the trope of being Bruce Banner during the day and the Hulk at night. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it works thematically, so the book pretty much sticks to it.
And he's murdered by Hawkeye, we should say, who Bruce Banner had given Hawkeye the ability to kill him if things got out of control, which is the only cool scene in Civil War II.
Yes, he gives him a specific arrowhead and says, hit me right in I think it's the hypothalamus, which is at the base of your brain. Mm-hmm. And that happens. But this also re-embraces the idea that the Hulk cannot be killed because Bruce Banner can die, but the Hulk won't. Bruce Banner dies several times over the course of Immortal Hulk. Not only is it scary from a psychological standpoint, the very first story arc deals with a public shooting that Bruce Banner is present for, and then the Hulk takes revenge on the shooter in a very brutal way. But there's a lot of Frankenstein-inspired body horror that I think is truly very creative, and the art is very well rendered. It's very lifelike. I really, really recommend it. I'm going to talk about it in recommended reading, but like I said, it is currently to this day being published. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to spoil it too much because that's kind of our rule of thumb. But the Hulk is sort of enjoying an interesting renaissance right now at the time that we're recording this podcast.
And now he's immortal. It's Marvel's best-selling title right now.
I know.
At the time of this recording.
Can you imagine?
I know. It's crazy, right?
Yes. So that, bringing us to the modern day, concludes your Geek History lesson on the Hulk.
Lesson over.
Thank you, Frankenstein.
Hulk.
No, you're Frankenstein. Hulk, what do we do next?
Recommended reading.
That's right, where I will recommend a bunch of stuff. If you liked this lesson, if you want to read more about the Hulk, you go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You click on the title you want, you buy yourself a copy in your preferred way to consume comics, and a little bit comes back our way so that we can keep the Hulk securely locked up in the hamster wheel in the basement. He powers the whole Mine universe.
Run in circles.
That's right. We love you for that. So my first recommendation is going to be The Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus Volume 1. There's only 2 omnibi that collect everything that he did. It's very, very monumental. There's only 2.
They haven't completed his entire
that
run.
Are currently, currently available.
Mm-hmm.
But start at the beginning. Start with Volume 1.
Well, if you pick these up, Marvel might see the sales and they might be like, let's make Volume 3.
Which is very true about Omnibuy. Also, these are the only way currently that you can get the Peter David run. Unless you're doing the digital thing.
Unless you're doing Marvel Unlimited.
Or unless you are enthusiastically picking up the single issues.
But I will say this, I cannot confirm. I don't know if the entire run's on Marvel Unlimited either.
I can't confirm that either. Yeah. So this is probably your best entry point. This is when the Hulk really started to evolve. And this has allowed us to get to Immortal Hulk being the best-selling title at Marvel Comics right now. Peter David is someone who we recommend a lot because he's a pretty important hand in a lot of stories. Mm-hmm. My second recommendation is The Incredible Hulk, Planet Hulk. For almost my entire life and certainly my entire retail career, this has been the best Hulk story. Hands down. If you liked Thor Ragnarok, if you've ever liked the Hulk, I really, really recommend this. It's just cool, man. It's so cool.
Have you ever thought that gladiatorial scene in Thor Ragnarok should be more than 5 minutes? Well, then this is the book for you.
There's truly 400 pages of it, and also a weird bug guy. I love it. And
it's actually really good.
It's so good. I just reread it before this lesson, and I was impressed at how great it was. And then my final recommendation, as you can probably deduce, is Immortal Hulk Volume 1, or Is He Both? And this, again, reestablishing the idea, Banner during the day, Hulk at night. And truly, truly scary stuff. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for children. I would probably recommend this. I would probably say this is a PG-13 type book. But I know we've talked extensively about how kids like the Hulk, so just be a little wary about who you might be buying this for.
I think I would say it's pretty tame for anybody 10 years and up.
Depends on the person. There is a scene where he rips someone in half and their spine and their skull stand.
That's why I said 10 and up.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't have handled that at 10 years old. That's why I say PG-13.
I think it's pretty safe for everybody 10 and up.
It's great. You should read it at some point in your life. That's my recommended reading.
Cool. Now we're going to move into the discussion. And as we mentioned earlier, we have a special guest, not the Hulk.
I suspect the Hulk may make an appearance, but
some might call this a discussion sidebar. I'm just saying.
I would say so. We're about to be joined by our dear friend who we wanted to have on the podcast forever, who has appeared on our Top 10 Arrow episode series. He reviewed Black Lightning season 2 with me. You know him as an incredible stand-up comedian, panelist on Collider Movie Talk, host of the Mad Titan podcast, and the leader of the Supervillain Squad. Please welcome Mr. Jay Washington. Hi, Jay. Welcome to Geek History Lesson.
Thank y'all for having me.
We've been trying to get you on for so long. I'm so happy.
I know. You guys are so busy. I'm busy. But guess what? We make this happen. We connected. We vibed.
That's right. So Jason and I already went over this, but I want to ask you, what is your relationship with the Hulk? Where did you first encounter this character? Any key moments to your long and storied history?
I remember growing up watching the Incredible Hulk series.
The live action show?
The live action show, yeah, with Bill Bixby. I remember that. And I remember watching the movies. And then I got it, because I was into the comic books at first, but then when I knew that they had a live action show, I just had to watch it. And there was always something about hearing that every time he was about to change. And so I loved that. And then I remember watching the old school cartoon.
Me
used to have on UPN. I remember just constantly following. I remember watching the movies.
You remember the UPN Hulk show?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah, that's different than the 60s one, man.
Yes, it is. I remember UPN Hulk. I remember all those. I remember then I remember watching the ill-fated Ang Lee Hulk, which I wanted to fight so many people about, because it was supposed to be just this art thing, and I was like, this is not right.
I remember being so excited for that movie, though.
I think we all were. I think everybody was excited.
I'm going to say two things about that movie. Eric Bana is actually pretty good in it. Or actually, I'll say three things. Two, the Hulk for 2003 looks pretty damn good for 2003.
I agree with you on that.
I thought they pulled that off.
Okay.
He doesn't hold up now, but like for 2003 special effects, he looks great.
He looked great.
And then three, the score, actually by Danny Elfman. It's one of Danny Elfman's best scores.
The score's dope.
Yeah.
Nick Nolte is just batshit crazy. and I get, because it's Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, when you do research and you find out that's part of the storyline in the Hulk in various comic runs, but the way he translated it, Ang Lee translated, you're like, what the hell is happening? So
the Hulk fighting the dogs actually is a leftover from a previous script. From a different movie, actually. That was the whole reason why the Hulk fights dogs.
Okay, so they're just like, we're just going to put
They were like, we watched Resident Evil and that was great. So can he fight a dog?
Maybe Dobermans?
Leave the dogs alone.
Nah, it was, that. And then I remember everything. I remember going to see The Incredible Hulk when it came out in theaters. I remember my first screening of it, the projector broke.
It was a sign.
I would never forget when that movie came out. It was like, I was like, yo, we're in Harlem now. Can we finish this? And so luckily they were able to cue it up to right that point. I was like, if I got to start this all the way over, I'm leaving. And so I just always have watched the character get big, T-shirts and stuff like that. Hulk Hogan, of course. You're like, who the hell's named Hulk? Things like that. So you've always, I connected with him. I've always connected with the big guys.
Yeah.
As we can tell, between him and another big purple guy, but maybe not the orange one so much. Not the orange one.
Interesting.
But I never became a big fan of his. But I've always liked the Hulk and what he stood for, and the dual personalities and the whole. When I was a kid, I'll never forget. I'll play with my cousins, and if my cousins pissed me off, I was like, "Watch my eyes, watch my eyes." I'll never forget that.
Okay, so now we've had your sweet Hulk stories. Let's get a little heavy. Jason and I teased this in the main episode. Let's talk about the moral implication of being the Hulk. Like, Bruce Banner is a mild-mannered scientist.
Yeah.
He's using his brain, and then he gets turned into basically a human bomb as a result of a bomb. What do we think living like that is like?
Oh, you have to be calm in every situation. But even situations that don't anger you. Remember, anything that raises his heart rate up, it just will trigger him.
I actually really liked that in the movie, that he wore a heart rate monitor.
Yeah. So you have to, I think the implications are humanity, we snap at everything nowadays. You ever watch how calm we have to try to be for certain people? Where you have to pull back like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
You got a guy like that if you say something to him that pisses him off, he literally has to pull back or he will kill you. There is no, he'll beat the hell out of you. He will kill you. So I think when it comes to the moral implication, it's that we all have a rage monster inside of us that eventually will come out. Now, granted, it may not be through radiation.
No, it's through my Twitter.
Through my Facebook. But, we have that. We all have that inside of us. And so I think that's like the moral implications of it. You think about, superpowers are manifested in many creatures, people we see in these books through traumatic episodes. So you have a traumatic episode where a gamma bomb, him initially trying to save a friend,
stupid Rick Jones.
Hey, and who was always in trouble no matter what. But you have a friend you're trying to save, and in the process, you become the antithesis of what you are. You're mild-mannered and you're just real cool. I just want to do some work, make good for humanity. But now you become this dude that I will kill everything.
So I'm going to talk about that too, because Amadeus Cho, who I love, and I'm dying to take over the Hulk role in the movies, says in Planet Hulk, but the Hulk has never killed anyone. Do we believe that for one single second?
Okay, so this is what I dropped in our main lesson. This is what I want to talk about. There is this idea in modern Marvel that the Hulk has never killed anyone. And I just am going to state right here that is a load of crap.
I also want to caveat, every superhero has killed someone, no matter who they are.
But it is like the Hulk goes into a town in the comic books, and that town becomes rubble.
Yeah.
You're telling me not one single person dies in
Everybody got out unscathed?
Yeah. So to me, I want to put it out there like, I think that argument is crap. I think the Hulk has at least, at bare minimum, killed 20,000 people.
I will give you that. And that's
he's a tornado.
And think about it. The Hulk jumps from building to building.
I love that. I love to watch the Hulk jump out of a helicopter and rip it out of the sky. Like, that brings me joy.
You watch those things, you think like, okay, gravel just happens to fall and nobody's around.
Yeah.
There's somebody that's gotten crushed by boulders that they can't explain what happened.
Even the fight in the Incredible Hulk movie.
Yes.
Now, he's blowing apart Harlem and like cars are everywhere. Like, at least 100 people are dead.
Where's Luke Cage?
And 62 of them are gangbangers that people probably didn't care.
Yeah.
But there are people, and now if it's this new Harlem, there's at least 2 to 10 millennials. But you see all this. His destruction is rampant. You can never. Superman has murdered people. I think when people say murdered, I think they're talking about direct, like walk up on you and just kill you.
Well, let's say collateral damage.
Yes, they're all collateral damage of the Hulk, no matter what.
Oh, I think the Hulk has straight up murdered people. Like, I want to also turn this discussion in. Does Hulk eat people? Because that's a thing that in certain, like in Immortal Hulk, in the Ultimates, Hulk straight up eats people, and that is a rumor about the Hulk that follows him across multiple storylines.
All right, I'm gonna say my piece about that.
Yeah,
I think the regular Marvel Comics universe Hulk does not eat people. I think Ultimate Hulk does, because the Ultimates are going about for the extreme.
Right.
But I do think the Incredible Hulk in the regular Marvel universe, even the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in Avengers 1, I think if the Hulk fighting Chitauri, so there's 3 Chitauri in front of him and 1 human, right? I think how the Hulk deals with that situation is he bats them all away, and that human gets batted away too.
Agreed.
I think that is how the Hulk operates. If he's batting or smashing and you're in his way, you're going down, and you're probably going to die. I think the Hulk has picked up so many cars, and people are in the cars and shaking that car like a salt shaker.
Oh.
You never heard the Hulk say, Hulk sorry. You never hear that. Somebody, Hulk bad, didn't mean to kill people. But I agree. I think the Hulk has been like, good thigh. Like he's eating somebody's leg or something like that. Like, it's possible.
All right, so then what's the best version of the Hulk? Because we've gone from like really, really stupid, borderline offensive because it's the 60s Tonto Talk Hulk. We've transformed into like innocent, childlike Hulk. We've had Doc Green / smart Hulk. What do we think is our best incarnation of the Hulk?
So here's the problem with my answer. Because I always...
There's no problem. Your answer is correct because it's your opinion.
This is why I say this. Because I always rock with the villains first and foremost.
Super villain squad,
right.
rather.
The Maestro. who wanted to destroy the
Jason talked extensively about the Maestro.
The Maestro is just the smartest, evilest version of the worst person to have those two abilities at the same time.
I'm going to need you to cosplay the Maestro, please.
Hey, let me tell you something. I'll start getting great paint.
I'm gonna throw out one sentence. I want you to give a brief answer about this.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about this more in the Patreon episode. In the Patreon episode, our Patreon is going to be about our Geek Lesson Extra is going to be all about what we think the MCU is going to do with the Hulk now.
Okay.
Like what are their plans? My one sentence pitch, I think it's going to be the Maestro. I think they're going to turn the Hulk into a villain. Do you think we should? I want a yes or no. Do you think we should see the Maestro in the MCU?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Listeners, there's if
Jay's face transformed into that of a child.
Listeners, I'm telling you, we're going to go down and deep into that. And so if you've ever wanted to support us on our Patreon, patreon.com/Jawiin, we're going to talk about the Hulk and a lot of Maestro. So get ready for that. What's your favorite version?
My favorite version of the Hulk is currently what's going on in Immortal Hulk right now, where he's like more Hulk at night, more Banner during the day, because the Hulk is really, really vicious in that. He ripped Crusher in half, and that was pretty gratifying. And he didn't eat someone, but he absorbed another person's body inside. So this evil scientist cut his head off and cut his hands off and put them in different jars, and then his body reabsorbed, and he absorbed the scientist inside of him. And then in the morning, Bruce was like, why do I feel gross? Why do I feel sick? So a lot of that storyline is Bruce dealing with the Hulk hangover. And I think that is fascinating. And that's what I would like to see explored in a Hulk movie. I don't think it's what we'll get.
I think that's the level of horror we'll never know.
No, it's way too dark for Disney.
I think the idea of the Hulk hangover is just like Bruce Banner the next day being like, oh, and like sometimes you vomit when you get hungover.
And it's a finger.
Or no, it's like he gets this piece of black, like he doesn't know what it is, and it's like Firestone. What? Like,
I ate a tire?
I ate a tire last night.
Hulk got to leave him notes. Hey, Banner. Hulk, sorry. Hulk got hungry. Nothing else open.
Maybe want to buy Pepto-Bismol. My favorite version of the Hulk actually is the version of the Hulk we see in Avengers 1. Because it combines my two favorite versions of the Hulk. I'm not a huge fan of Smart Hulk. I'm also not a fan of Hulk just being a pure up monster. Mm-hmm. My favorite version is where he's sort of the version of the monster that we can corral. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like because he's still savage, but like he's sort of still cognizant enough that, and again, the perfect scene to me is in Avengers Endgame where, the Hulk tore apart the Chitauri in Avengers 1, but then there's that scene in Endgame right after the end of Avengers 1 where like he tries to go in the elevator and they're like, you can't go in the elevator, and he's like, I hate the stairs. But he doesn't kill them.
He just goes and takes the stairs.
Because Savage Hulk would kill them or throw the elevator out of the building.
I do love the joke though where Professor Hulk is like rips his shirt off and it's like, oh, this is so like this is so demeaning.
So I just felt like I kind of feel like Avengers 1 like nailed, like that's my perfect Hulk.
Do you feel like the Avengers cartoons got that type of Hulk right?
Yeah,
Jason has a lot of feelings about the
Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yeah,
is the best event. That's the best version of the Hulk.
Yeah, because that's the type of Hulk they have.
He's superhero Hulk.
Yeah, he's right. He's a full-on member of the squad. Like, I have to help people.
But if you make him, but if you make him too angry, he becomes your villain.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is a classic Hulk trope, and if they go the Maestro version, there's fully embracing that.
Yeah. But I don't like where he's just like he's full on monster, and I don't like it when he's full on smart. I like again. I want a little bit of both. I want some.
So you didn't care for Professor Hulk as a whole?
No, I liked him in Avengers Endgame because we hadn't seen him in the movies.
Okay,
but I don't need him anymore. Like we've seen him. Yeah, move on. There's plenty of other versions of the Hulk. Let's see another version.
My number one grievance with the way the Hulk has been portrayed in the MCU is that we will never get the actual Planet Hulk because Planet Hulk is so good. We got the comedy version of that.
Save that up. Ashley, any other questions we want to ask Jay about the Hulk?
I think we're going to wrap this up with Jay because we are going to jump over onto the Patreon. So Jay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let everyone know where they can find you, you, where they can support you, where they can check out all of your amazing projects online.
Oh, thank you guys. You guys find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. J Washington, MRJAY. I always say this. You should know how to spell Washington. You really, really should. My YouTube channel, JAY Washington 80. I got all my reviews, trailer reactions, all this other crazy stuff is up there. Make sure you join my Patreon as well, my Supervillain Squad, patreon.com/Mr. J Washington. Check out the Mad Titan podcast where I get you caught up on everything happening in the Marvel and DC live action cinematic universes. When does this come out?
Soon.
We'll cut in September.
Okay. Also, make sure you catch me in the wrestling ring September.
We will not cut that out.
Okay. September. No, I just need to know date. September 14th for UEW in Sun Valley. I will have all the information up on my Instagram and my Twitter.
I'm pretty certain this will come out before that.
Okay.
If not,
it will come out before that.
If not, it was a great show.
Yeah.
All right.
Cut this. We're not cutting this.
Well, I actually want to end this with one last thing. Jay, I want you to give us your best Hulk smash in 3, 2, 1.
Hulk smash!
That's pretty good.
That was really good. Oh, I'm so glad we finally got to have Jay on and that he joined us to talk about the Hulk.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. And again, if you want to hear more of Jay, we're specifically going to talk about what should the Hulk's role be in the MCU going forward. Like, what should Mark Ruffalo get up to? And it's a great conversation that you can only hear over at patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. That's where you go over there and you support the podcast for as little as $1 a month, and you can get all this other great content to help us keep this podcast free to you. I love our conversations that we have over at patreon.com. We get like really more in depth. We curse over there that we don't curse on this podcast. And we go in a lot of crazy ways that we limit ourselves on this podcast. So they're more frank, they're more interesting. And I think the MCU conversation that we recorded is astounding. It's 25 minutes. It's 25 minutes. So it's almost another half episode over there on Patreon.
Yeah, it's one of our long, and our discussion with Jay was pretty long because he's incredible. Mm-hmm. So if you liked that, you definitely have to check out the extra.
Patreon.com/Jawiin. Thank you to everybody who supports us over there because you're all awesome super friends.
Yeah.
All right, Ashley, what's next?
Teaching tweet time.
Oh, man, I always forget about the teaching tweet.
I know.
Twitter is a weird place now that they've expanded. All right. Teaching tweet is now where Ashley is going to sum up the lesson in 140 characters, the original Twitter length. And you can find this tweet at GHL Podcast, the official podcast Twitter.
Yes, the same day that this episode drops. The Incredible Hulk. Puny humans. Monsters are for smashing. With a bunch of exclamation points because the Hulk doesn't know grammar.
Cut. Actually, this is the director of GHL Podcast over here, Frank. I'm going to need to take 2 on that Hulk voice.
Absolutely not.
I'm going to need to take 2.
No.
All right, let's reset to 1, everybody.
Not in my contract.
Let's reset to number 1. All right. And action.
Not doing it.
Oh, come on.
No.
The audience demands it.
No, they do not.
All right, but they do demand the honor roll, which is the last section of our podcast where if you go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us 5 stars, we will read your review on the air. And just to let you know, we have a big backlog on this, so it could be a while before we get to you. So please be patient. But we're getting to them. We're going through them because we love to read them on the air. We
are. And yeah, you sharing them helps other great geeks find us. We're about a year behind, but we're getting there.
We're getting there. All right.
The first review comes from Slacker MTG, who says, absolutely wonderful. I have only been listening for a couple months, but I'm really enjoying learning about all things geek. I love learning about these characters and the other subjects. The format is consistent, which usually bores me, but Ashley and Jason kill it with their witty banter and jokes. Thank you for the cerebral enjoyment. Wish I could do more. Insert Patreon plug here. Oh, thank you, Slacker MTG.
Thanks, man.
And then they are also joined by Wes Mort, who says, great show. I listen every week and I learn so much. Love the West Coast Avengers theme. Love the lessons. These are my 2 favorite teachers. And thanks to them, I sound so very intelligent at all the superhero parties I attend. Well, actually, they aren't parties. They're just me explaining these things to my wife. Do good work, guys. Oh, thank you. I love that people take our information and share it with their loved ones, with their friends.
I'm glad that your wife enjoys it and it's not annoyed.
No. I bet she's awesome. Westmort is awesome. Slacker MTG is awesome. Thank you so much for those 5-star reviews.
Yes, welcome into the teacher's lounge where there's a giant bowl of oranges on the table.
Who brought them?
Mr. Smith.
What does Mr. Smith teach?
Politics, just like Jimmy Stewart in the famous movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Cool. Is he
also would be against the Hulk.
Jimmy Stewart? Did he not die? He just moved to the Mind University?
Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And changed his name to Mr. Smith?
Yes. Yes, he's still alive. We have kept him alive with our...
He's a Vulcan.
He's alive with our podcast technology, and he's sitting here.
Yeah.
He's currently in the room, actually.
Oh, hi, Mr. Smith.
Oh, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I didn't get much time to prepare because I didn't know I was showing up today.
It's okay, Mr. Smith. I'll let you go, but I want to ask one quick question.
Okay.
Would you consider reprising your role from It's a Wonderful Life for our holiday episode this year?
Well, Moosh, I'll tell you. You make that lesson like the moon, and I'm going to put a rope around it.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's a deep cut reference.
It is not really. It's one of the most famous movies of all time.
Buffalo Moon.
All right, thank you for coming by, Mr. Smith.
Ta-ta. I don't even know what a podcast is. Huh?
I know you don't.
I lost the voice there.
Radio on the internet. Bye. All right, one quick question for you, Jason, who's now come back to the microphone.
We have a question?
For hashtag stick around.
Oh, we're not going to plug everything?
You can plug everything.
I mean, we should probably plug everything if we do hashtag stick around.
Sorry, that's the next thing in my notes.
We should probably tell everybody that you can, of course, subscribe and download this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere you can listen to these fine podcasts. Ashley, where can they suggest future lessons like the Hulk in case they want to do Amadeus Cho, like our amazing TAs today?
Yeah, if you want to be as awesome as our amazing TAs, Chaim and Tobias Steinberg, Jeff Anderson, Isaiah Quinn, James Finneran, Ollie Sutcliffe, Matt Helms, Don, Zach Denton, James Young, Vicky Fox Martin, James Wilson at Prisma8SLG, Lee Jones, and at Smoothie_Gamer. You can do that on Twitter at GHL Podcast, Facebook.com/Geek History Lesson or GeekHistoryLesson.com. There is a whole bunch of ways to contact us in all of those places, and we do write all your names down.
And now, don't forget that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. For me, it's at Jawiin, Jawiin. For Ashley, it's at Ashley V. Robinson. And now it's hashtag stick around just because we want to make sure that you stuck through all the plugs.
So, Jason.
All right.
Don't think about it. First answer, best answer.
Is this a yes or no or just another one?
It's not a yes or no.
Okay.
You have to actually have a little more higher thought.
I don't know if I can do immediate, but let's
have
find
a little
out.
higher thought than that. When we inevitably get another mutation of the Hulk, which color, which he has not yet been, should he be?
I don't know. I mean, my gut says blue, but I think a blue Hulk would look stupid.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. He is going to turn another color.
Of course he is.
I mean, the problem is that most of the other colors are stupid. Like, a yellow Hulk looks dumb. A blue Hulk looks like a Smurf. He's already green. Purple is like the parasite, you know, so you don't...
Thanos.
Yeah, or like Thanos, so you don't want to do that. Orange just looks like maybe he got sick. You know, like orange is weird. I don't know. I mean, I think blue. I think they're going to go blue, but again, he's a giant Smurf that crushes people, so what's the point of that?
Well, maybe he'll be a dark blue.
He'll be a dark blue Smurf?
Well, look, I'm far too young to have ever seen the Smurfs. Aren't the Smurfs like a baby blue color?
Sort of,
They're like
yeah.
a light blue?
Look, there have been Smurf movies out that were very successful. 3 of them, in fact, while you have been alive.
Are you suggesting that I should have wasted my time seeing the Smurf
No, but
movies?
I mean, you know what a Smurf is, though.
Yeah, but I've never watched an episode of the Smurfs.
But
I was just making a really dumb
but you know
joke.
what a Smurf is. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, you can't.
Their bad guy has a cat.
Yeah, Gargamel.
Sure.
Yep.
A terrible name.
Yep. Played by Hank Azaria in the movie.
Oh, good for him.
I've never seen those movies, but I just know that.
Cool.
I'm serious. I haven't seen them. I've seen the trailers, though. They're terrible.
Welcome to Smurf Corner.
Yep. Welcome to Smurf. Yes, Smurf Sidebar.
You can request an episode on the Smurfs.
What do you
We
think?
probably
What
won't
do you think it should be?
I honestly would like to see a title called Yellow Hulk.
Cowardly Hulk?
Wherein Sinestro visits the Marvel Universe and turns the Hulk into a Yellow Lantern.
I don't think that's
Great.
ever going to happen.
That's my amalgam pitch, Yellow Hulk.
Yellow Hulk?
Yeah.
Should be like...
What about Pink Hulk? What's Silver Hulk?
Should be the Fearful Hulk.
Fearful Hulk.
You know,
He's like angered by his impotence.
well, Amalgam would be different because Amalgam is not just the Hulk as in the Sinestro Corps. It means that his name is completely different. So it'd have to be. So the idea is like, okay, let's say Sinestro became the Hulk. Mm-hmm. So like, what would Sinestro call himself if he became the Hulk? I don't know. Yeah, Sinulk.
Sinestro Smash.
You know, like when they combined Iron Man and Green Lantern, it was the Iron
Lantern.
Lantern, which actually is a really good amalgam.
You could call him literally the Yellow Hulk, like the Yellow Lanterns.
Well, I was trying to think of like, is there a way you could do Parallax in there?
Or they could be the Hulk Corps instead of the Sinestro Corps.
Yeah, they could. That's
by
probably
embracing their
the Hulk Corps
anger. I don't know.
That's not a bad idea. Or I was going to say the Incredible Parallax.
That's a good one.
You know, I don't know, something like that. Sounds good. All right, thanks so much for listening to Geek History Lesson. I have been Jason Green Jeans Inman.
I have been Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, will you please close out this Hulk episode and then also lock the door to make sure that the Hulk stays in the basement?
Class is now dismissed.